In other news, finally, Israel is firing across the border into Syria after violence has overspilled across their border. So there's a lot going on. To sort through it, let's bring in our guest. It's Daniel Pipes, president of the Middle East Forum. And Daniel, you sort of, as I'm contemplating this, I came from a position a year ago saying we should have gone in early. Now I'm thinking it might be too late to go in at all. You're sort of the reverse. You've said you've always advocated for Western neutrality, but now you think we should go in to back the Assad regime. Explain that.
Let me start by saying that it's not out of any affection or admiration for the Assad regime,
sure,
which is despicable, horrible, and so forth, just horrible. But rather looking at the situation as a whole, and looking at the horrid Assad regime, and looking at the increasingly horrible rebels, I believe we're best off with them continuing to fight each other. I don't want a victor in this battle. I don't want either Assad nor the rebels to emerge triumphant in charge of Syria and ready for a fight with their neighbors and beyond. I think we strategically are best off when they are focused on each other. And this is a strategic point of view. It's not a humanitarian point of view. I have great sympathy, and my heart bleeds for those who are suffering in Syria. But we must look out in the first place for our strategic interests, which is not having the Islamist rebels take over, nor having the Assad regime win. Now, I advocate supporting the Assad regime because it's losing. And I think if things go on as they are now, it will be gone, and we will have the triumphant Islamist rebels in Damascus.
So, Dan, I understand the philosophical argument that you're making. You back the losing side and you get these two bad actors to a stalemate. But make the political argument. How could the United States politically go in and back up the Assad regime, putting the moral argument aside? Politically, how would that work?
Why is it problematical politically? Why can't we just do it? Why can't we help? We did this in the Iraq-Iran war in the 1980s. We helped Saddam Hussein against the Iranians, not out of affection for Saddam Hussein, who we realized was a miserable monster, but not wanting him to lose to Ayatollah Khomeini. Why can't we do the same now?
Daniel, with respect, having worked counterinsurgency in Iraq for the CIA, I'd have to ask you to explain how this would not be disastrous, because you'd have the U.S. intervening on the side of, as you correctly stated, and I think we all agree, a monster. We've waited till this point when we're afraid of the Islamist opposition. To be sure, that's fine. But given the currents in the region, and given that we are still paying for, in many cases, paying for with negative Arab public opinion about the United States, and paying for a lack of levers and a lack of players that we can turn to in the Middle East because of what we've done in the past, we're going to back this horrible despot now? I mean, there's already a jihad going on. Now the U.S. would be backing a guy that there's a jihad going against that's drawing in people from all across the region. And to me, that seems like among the worst of ideas.
I can respect you not liking my approach. I don't particularly
please expound upon it.
I think the worst possible outcome here is for Al-Qaeda-related, AKP-related, Saudi-related, Qatari-related Islamists becoming the rulers of a unified Syria from Damascus. I think that will be worse than what you've just spelled out. So it's a reasonable debate. I can see your point of view, but I happen to think that a striking Islamist victory in Syria would be the worst thing for our interests.
And I think, Will, as we've had conversations about this, my argument has always been from the beginning, we have to think about the vacuum that will be created by this conflict and how that draws Al-Qaeda and Al-Qaeda operatives like a magnet to that. My concern was always humanitarian and terrorism.
Right.
Do you think it's too late to worry? It's certainly too late to worry about humanitarian cost. We're at 90,000 deaths. Is it too late to worry about terrorism?
No, it's never too late to worry about terrorism. I'm probably the most sympathetic person at this table to Daniel's argument.
Yeah.
I have consistently said this is kind of the Kissinger approach to Iran-Iraq. Two bad guys are killing each other. This serves the United States' interest very well. Now, this is a very cold-hearted approach that sets aside the humanitarian aspects of this war, and I'm very well aware of that. But if you're advocating for humanitarian intervention, you're also taking on a huge amount of hubris that you can stop it and create a better world for these people. I would just say Daniel's gone one step farther than I'm willing to go, and that is propping up Assad in order to continue the stalemate. The argument that I find more compelling is you do something to secure the chemical weapons. You go in, even if it means somehow fighting the jihad, fighting seemingly on behalf of Assad to secure the chemical weapons, but not to perpetuate the stalemate.
And it just seems to me that you've got the same hubris, Daniel, and your problem of if we're backing somebody, what will the blowback be? You say Al-Qaeda's aligned with Assad's enemies, so now we're going in there and we're making them hate us even more, showing that the only thing that we have zero principle in any of our arguments, and we're fighting them again. And we know that the occupation in Iraq and the occupation in Afghanistan was a good recruiting tool for Al-Qaeda. This will be the greatest recruiting tool they ever had.
Well, I'm surprised you haven't pointed out the even worse aspect, which is that we're in effect helping Iran, which is the least attractive part of my own argument. But I would say that here we have in Syria today the Sunni Islamists fighting the Shiite Islamists, the Turkish-backed Islamists fighting the Iranian-backed Islamists. Well, let them go at it, and let us help them continue to fight it. I don't want to see this end. I don't want to see them turn their guns on us or our allies.
Daniel, it's a really interesting perspective, and we thank you for sharing it with us. Thank you. Okay, tonight's Misfit Stories are next. Stay tuned.